Good evening. No, still good afternoon, everyone. I've just returned from the House of Commons, where the government has published a command paper setting out the details of the deal that has been reached with the Democratic Unionist Party. I'm clear that the long-term interests of the Union are served by persuading those who might not vote for Unionist parties or even think themselves as Unionists that Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom offers the best future for them and their children. A thriving Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom, underpinned by democratically accountable and locally elected leaders, is the surest way to safeguard this precious union. And I look forward to continuing to work with those who support our union to continue to advance this cause. On Monday night, Sir Jeffrey set out his party's willingness to restore the Assembly and Executive, depending on the government's delivery on our commitments. The government will deliver on this and do so quickly. Tomorrow in the House of Commons, we will introduce two core pieces of legislation within this deal. That legislation will affirm Northern Ireland's constitutional status, and it will future-proof Northern Ireland's position within the UK internal market against any protocol that would create a new EU law alignment for Northern Ireland. The legislation will also strengthen the UK internal market by guaranteeing in law unfettered access for Northern Ireland goods to the whole of the UK internal market. The deal we have reached will ensure that internal trade within the United Kingdom takes place under a new UK internal market system. We will set up a new UK East-West Council to bring businesses and ministers together to identify the opportunities that unite us across all parts of the United Kingdom. And we'll establish a new public body, Intertrade UK, to promote and facilitate trade within the United Kingdom, recognising that while international trade is important, so too is the vital trade that occurs within our internal market. The financial package offered to the parties in December will also be available to an incoming executive. This will release over £3 billion in funding to support Northern Ireland's public services and provide a solid foundation for the executive to deliver better outcomes in the day-to-day lives of the people of Northern Ireland. Much of what I'm announcing today is the result of a significant period of negotiations between the government and the Democratic Unionist Party, led by Sir Jeffrey Donaldson. But I'd also like to thank all the political parties in Northern Ireland for the patience they have shown during this time. This is the right deal for Northern Ireland and the right deal for the Union. It strengthens and further protects the UK internal market and the Union, both now and in the long term. The government is committed to delivering this deal swiftly so that we can build a brighter future for Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom. It's now time for elected representatives in Northern Ireland to come together to end 2 years of impasse and start work again in the interests of the people who elected them. I look forward to working with the new First Minister and Deputy First Minister, the ministers in the returned Northern Ireland Executive and Northern Ireland Assembly members to improve the lives of the people working here. Hand over to you, Sir Jeffrey.
Thank you, Secretary of State. On behalf of the Democratic Unionist Party, I welcome the publication today of Safeguarding the Union Agreement. This agreement is something we have worked hard to deliver for the people of Northern Ireland. This is our achievement. After 2 years of hard work and negotiation, this is what we can show: real change, delivering progress for everyone in Northern Ireland. It is the product of a long and protracted negotiation between the DUP and the UK Government. And I want to place on record my appreciation to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and the Prime Minister and their officials for their work and engagement during the period of negotiations. I also want to pay tribute to all of my party colleagues, particularly my Deputy Leader, Gavin Robinson, who have engaged in these negotiations. Today's agreement, I believe, is a positive and decisive step forward for Northern Ireland. I know that on the basis of faithful delivery of all the elements of this agreement, we are taking the right steps. It is almost 2 years since we withdrew the First Minister as a consequence of the imposition of the Northern Ireland Protocol, which did not have the support from the elected representatives of unionism in Northern Ireland. This agreement represents the very significant progress on all the issues that we advanced in our negotiations. It will ensure that there is a new UK internal market system which removes checks on goods moving within the United Kingdom internal market, save for those conducted by UK authorities as part of their ongoing intelligence-based approach to prevent smuggling and other criminality. There is legislation to provide new legal and practical protections for the Acts of Union, and which guarantees unfettered access for Northern Ireland businesses to the rest of the United Kingdom. The agreement provides us with an opportunity to use the new structures to shape the future and to continue to work and campaign on all areas where we will want to focus on going forward. I know from over 40 years of public service that people want their representatives to be straight with them. They value honesty. Therefore, I won't claim that every battle has been won or even that every battle is finished. But I do believe that what we have achieved gives us an opportunity to bank the progress that we have made, the gains and the changes that we have secured, and to continue making the case for further change. I and my colleagues will work confidently, a confident unionism, a forward-looking unionism, a unionism that wants to make progress for everyone in Northern Ireland. We will work alongside others to build a thriving Northern Ireland, a prosperous Northern Ireland, a peaceful and stable Northern Ireland, firmly within the United Kingdom, with the Union safeguarded for future generations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sir Jeffrey. And it seems that someone's put me in charge of calling who's going to ask questions. So, which is a foolish move. Tracy from UTV.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can I ask, can you just clear up for us what your views are in terms of the EU's position, input into this deal? Is it the case that there have been clear changes to the Windsor framework, or is this something that the UK government is doing by itself? And secondly, we're clearly looking at the big sale now that there has been an agreement. But has there been an unravelling already, given the fact that one of your own MPs, Sammy Wilson, launched a broadside on the government, describing the UK government as weak-willed and spineless? That's the organisation that you've now come to deal with, Sir Jeffrey. So, is your party, are there fractures, and what do you make of that assessment?
Well, I thought Sammy was being quite quiet and timid for him today, so that's interesting. Tracy, just to answer the first question, I mean, just to start, I'm actually proud of what the government did in the Windsor framework, and I do think it has started a process, but that obviously wasn't enough to encourage the Democratic Unionist Party back into government. And this deal is about safeguarding Northern Ireland's place in the Union. We've set out what it involves, and that includes new measures in domestic legislation to affirm unfettered access and Northern Ireland's constitutional position, as well as new structures and steps to ensure the full benefits of the Windsor framework are felt by business and people. But there's a whole chapter in here, chapter 4, which will take you through the further changes and their impacts on the Windsor framework in no uncertain terms. And the government is committed to all of that chapter 4. And I think when you talk about what has changed, I think we saw only yesterday that there were some changes announced on rest of the world products coming here, which were formerly subject to the EU customs code and EU tariffs, and are now subject to our custom code and UK tariffs, and meaning that Northern Ireland can now absolutely 100% benefit from the free trade deals that this government conducts?
In relation to the EU, Tracy, we've already seen the beginning of the process whereby change is being delivered. And as the Secretary of State has said yesterday, as part of the timeline leading to the restoration of the political institutions, we had a statement by the UK government with the EU setting out details of legal change that will occur and that ensures Northern Ireland benefits from free trade agreements reached by the UK government on behalf of all of the United Kingdom. And this is significant. The measures agreed yesterday with the EU mean that somewhere in the region of 4 million product movements between Great Britain and Northern Ireland will no longer be subject to tariffs, customs declarations and so on. They will flow through the new UK internal market system. And therefore, these are the kind of gains we can make, and there is more to come. So we are clear that this represents change to the Windsor Framework text, that it represents an enhancement of what was agreed there, and we've worked with the government. In fairness, the Prime Minister, having negotiated the Windsor Framework, was prepared to sit down with us and work through our concerns and bring forward solutions. And that's what we've done. And those solutions are, yes, agreed between us and the UK government, but we know that the UK government have been an ongoing, as they do, discussion with the EU around many of these issues. And yesterday demonstrated the value of that and what we've delivered by way of real change that will be to the benefit of Northern Ireland. In respect of my own party, my party executive, along with our elected representatives and our party officer team, have examined these proposals in detail. They've considered them, and on Monday evening I was given a decisive mandate by my party executive to proceed on the basis that we have outlined and which is now unfolding. I recognise there are colleagues who have ongoing concerns. And as I said in my remarks, there is more work to do. And I will work with those colleagues to deliver the further change that is needed in the future. But my party has assessed these proposals against our 7 tests, and we are satisfied that we have made substantial progress and sufficient to enable us to restore the political institutions. And we will continue to work from within Stormont and at Westminster, and our MPs will be an important part of that process in seeking to deliver further change. I am proud of what the DUP has achieved. We are the party that has delivered change. And as I have said in the last few days, to those out there who are our critics, who are the naysayers, I simply ask them and I challenge them, show us what you have achieved. What have you delivered by way of change to the protocol, to the Windsor Framework, to removing the Irish Sea border on goods moving within the United Kingdom and its internal market? The DUP is the party of delivery. We are the party that has secured change, and that change has been delivered by a party that has worked together, and I am confident that my party will continue to work together to deliver more change in the future.
Enda from the BBC.
Secretary of State, first of all, to you, did the EU get sight of the command paper before it was published? We haven't heard from the EU today. And won't the changes Sir Jeffrey talks about require decisions by the Joint Committee, in other words, full buy-in from the EU in order for some of those measures to take effect? And Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, how are you going to sell your deal to the wider unionist electorate when you can't sell it to some of your MPs, you can't sell it to some of your MLAs, or indeed sell it to some of your lords? Isn't that going to be an impossible task?
Shall I go first? So this package is actually very much about the Union, the United Kingdom, and its the restoration of the Northern Ireland Executive. It's about the people of Northern Ireland. And of course, as Sir Jeffrey alluded to, the government and I stay in close contact with our EU counterparts. And indeed, I spoke to Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič only this morning. And we will continue to work with the European Union on a whole range of issues. And as I mentioned in my first answer, Those conversations have already delivered change that is beneficial to the whole of Northern Ireland. Other changes require domestic legislation, and as Jeffrey says, this is a process. And we will work together in that process to make this package work, to make sure that Stormont can return, to make sure that Stormont is sustainable and can return in the long term, and that the people of Northern Ireland feel happy, comfortable, and get more prosperous in the United Kingdom.
In respect of these proposals, my party has made its decision, and I can tell you that was a decisive decision by my party. And I've been mandated by my party to take forward these proposals, conditioned upon the government delivering on its side, and tomorrow we will see more of that delivery in the form of legislation coming in the House of Commons. I recall that when the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill was brought forward, many of the elements in the Protocol Bill are now incorporated into these proposals, into this agreement. And all of our parliamentary party supported those proposals that are now incorporated into this agreement. And I agree with my colleagues, there is more to do. Further change is needed. And I recognise, of course, that not just my colleagues, but people in Northern Ireland have concerns about how things will progress. There is, I have to say, Enda, there's a trust issue here. And that trust issue is not in me. That trust issue is in whether the government will deliver what they have committed to do. And I believe that we have built into these proposals sufficient safeguards and leverage that enables us to deliver what is being done. And I am prepared to move forward on that basis. And my party has fully endorsed that decision. And I will continue to work with all of my colleagues. In terms of selling the deal, I don't see that as what I need to do. I have simply asked the people of Northern Ireland to judge the deal on its merits. And I did ask people to wait until the proposals were published and to give them fair consideration. I have to tell you, Enda, already this afternoon, within hours of these proposals being published, we are being inundated, flooded with messages of support from unionists right across Northern Ireland who are saying, well done for what you have achieved. You stood your ground, you fought hard, and what you have achieved and delivered represents real change. I think these proposals are more than capable of selling themselves, because people will see the benefit of this for Northern Ireland, and not least because these proposals restore our place within the United Kingdom and its internal market, but they also get Stormont working again. I believe passionately you can have all the pieces of legislation and you can have all the proposals you want, but in the end, the union and the strength of the union depends upon the will of the people of Northern Ireland. And my job as a unionist is to promote the benefits of the union. This task was about safeguarding the union. Our job now is to promote the benefits of the union, persuade people that the union is best for them. And I believe in what we have done and achieved that will help us in terms of making Northern Ireland work, delivering for people and their real needs, but also demonstrating that being part of the United Kingdom brings real benefits that help and assist and support every single citizen in Northern Ireland.
James from Cool FM.
How difficult has this process been for you? How difficult has it been for the government?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's been a long process, and at times, forgive me, Jeffrey, it has been frustrating, but Sir Jeffrey is actually quite a tenacious negotiator, and he's a man of principle. He knows exactly what he stands for. And to be quite frank, I could understand the points he was making. A keen Brexiteer, I want the whole of my country to see the benefits of leaving the European Union, something we did 4 years ago today. But also I probably needed some extra explanation about unionism in Northern Ireland. And I've had a decent education. I'm probably on GCSE level at this point, but I'm sure it will continue until I get my master's. But it has been worthwhile, because what we have delivered, I believe, is not just the basis for Stormont to go back, but a package of measures that demonstrates this government's commitment to the union, that demonstrates this government's commitment to Northern Ireland and its people. And I know that only good things can flow from here. And next, David Blevins from Sky. David.
Secretary of State, the EU's role in all of this still feels a little like the elephant in the room. So can you be crystal clear with us? Is this going through on a nod and a wink from Brussels, or have the UK government and EU embraced creative ambiguity in the interest of power sharing? And Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, we've heard lots of reports about division in your party. Those reports became reality as a result of a leak the other evening, and were laid bare in the Commons this afternoon. How decisive was the executive's endorsement for this on Monday evening?
So, David, if I can go first, if that's all right, Sir Jeffrey. I'm sorry I'm taking all the questions.
No.
But I do think that the passing of the Windsor Framework did reset the relationship between the United Kingdom government and the European Union. And since then, it's not a nod and a wink. It's not done behind closed doors. It's not any sort of weird dealing. We are now just dealing as we should do. As we want to be, as a good friend of mine used to say, better neighbours than tenants, and we're acting in that way. And we enjoy our relationship with the European Union and look forward to it developing in the future. And everything we've done in this space has been done in good faith on both sides.
In relation to the position of my party, I don't accept the characterisation that my party is split. I think that, as with any party, people have concerns, and the good thing about my party is they can raise those concerns, and have done. And we've talked through those issues. And we did that at our party executive, a body that is very broadly representative of the party, members of Parliament, MLAs, councillors from every part of Northern Ireland, party members who hold office in our constituency associations. There is no greater representative body of unionism and of the DUP than the party executive. And we had a full discussion at our meeting on Monday evening, and the issues were laid out there. And at the end of it, we came to a decision that has mandated me as leader to proceed with the backing of my party. We have not revealed the figures on this, David. In fact, as party leader, I have not asked my party chairman to give me the figures, but I have some sense of what that vote looked like, and I can say to you that there was a very wide margin of support for the position that we have adopted, that the vote was absolutely decisive. And I go forward on the strength of that mandate, confident that I have the backing of my party, confident that we will work together, not only to ensure that the change we have secured is delivered, but also to work for further change going forward. And indeed, we will have an early opportunity to do that, because built into this process is an Assembly vote later this year, which can trigger an independent review of these arrangements. So within months, we will have an opportunity, having tested these new arrangements, particularly from the point of view of the political institutions and their role in all of this. If there are issues that need to be addressed, then we have an opportunity to do that, and I will work with my colleagues to deliver whatever further change is required.
Thank you. Jonathan from PA.
Good evening. It seems through the day there's been two almost competing narratives emerging, one from the DUP suggesting that real substantive changes have been made to the Windsor Framework, from one from the government suggesting the changes are much less substantial. Can I ask you both, just to be clear and state, what has been unveiled today? Has it fundamentally changed the nature of the winter framework, or has it not?
Well, I think, if I may go first, I have absolutely no doubt any reasonable person reading this lengthy document, there is a lot of substance in this document that points to change. And I believe that is what we have delivered. So one of my core objectives was to ensure that where goods are moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland and staying within the United Kingdom, there would be no checks on those goods, save where there's a suspicion of smuggling or criminality. The Windsor Framework gave us a green lane, which involved the continuation of some checks and some declarations. That is gone. And by any measure, that represents a fundamental change to the way that goods coming from Great Britain to Northern Ireland are dealt with. We are now in a situation, and it's there in black and white. This is not just me saying. I said it yesterday and people were questioning what I said, were doubtful, but the evidence is now here that in respect of the movement of goods within the United Kingdom and its internal market, including Northern Ireland, the checks, physical and identity checks, are gone, save for the exceptions involving smuggling, that the customs supplementary declarations are gone, the green lane is gone, and I could point to many other aspects of these arrangements that represent change. Change that has been delivered, change that measured against our 7 tests represents substantial progress on where we were even a year ago.
And I can only kind of reiterate what Jeffrey said. I mean, the command paper is absolutely clear. Just on this, just talk about these checks. We will provide clear legal direction to DERA and other UK government authorities to eliminate any physical checks when goods move within the UK internal market system, save for those required as part of risk management, approach to criminality, abuse of the scheme, smuggling, disease risks, all the things that you would expect to protect our own UK internal market. And this is really, it really is a new and significant commitment, which we have never made before. But Jonathan, I guess the best answer to your question is, as I said to Tracy from UTV, Chapter 4. There is a whole chapter here on further changes and their impacts on the Windsor Framework. Doogie from GB News.
There's quite a lot in that, really, but what happens around state aid coming to Northern Ireland? Has that been cleared up, or is that still on the DD?
Elements of state aid were cleared up in the Windsor Framework, and we continue to work on the other elements. I mean, I think it's like 98% is covered by the Windsor Framework.
And in both state aid and VAT, Northern Ireland is now once again under the fiscal regime of the United Kingdom on these matters. And that is, again, real change delivered for the benefit of businesses in Northern Ireland.
Amanda.
Okay, and just a couple of questions for you both. Secretary of State, could you confirm the timeline for what happens next regarding the Assembly sitting on Saturday? So Jeffrey, would you like to take this opportunity to apologise to people in Northern Ireland for the damage this 2-year impasse has caused? And for you both, this isn't our first rodeo. Will the DUP and the UK government commit to reform Stormont so that veto powers on political parties fulfilling their mandate ends?
So on the timeline, I have agreed, Jeffrey set out a very clear timeline to the UK government that we will stick to ensure, and we will keep our side of the deal. Today was a very important part of that, the launch of the command paper. Tomorrow is equally a very important part of that. The 2 SIs we've been talking about, pieces of secondary legislation going through the House of Commons. That does keep to the timeline that we have agreed, and I promised Jeffrey that I'd be true to my word and the UK government's word, and I'd like to think we are demonstrating that. I'll answer reform very briefly. I know this is a debate in many parts in communities around Northern Ireland, but I believe reform this is a debate best had by elected representatives of Northern Ireland in Stormont, and as the UK government is a guarantor of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, I'm committed to it in every form.
In relation to the timeline, first of all, as the Secretary of State has indicated, Amanda, we set out our requirements in terms of what needed to be delivered, and when that is delivered, we will honour our side. And in those circumstances, when that moment comes, I will then write to the Speaker of the Northern Ireland Assembly and ask that the Assembly be convened for the purposes of electing a Speaker. We're not at that moment yet, and I will judge when that moment comes and when it is the right moment. And all the speculations that is out there about when the Assembly might sit, I do want that to happen as quickly as possible, and we will work with the government to ensure that the conditions that we have laid out are met.
Olivia. Oh, sorry, I apologise.
And if you've just switched on, it's 6 o'clock, and we are listening to a news conference at Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland on the deal to resume power sharing there. Let's continue to listen.
To persuade, to pressurise the government to get back into negotiations with the EU in recognition, as they did in the command paper, the previous command paper, that was published in July 2021, recognising the harm the protocol was doing to Northern Ireland. The government then laid out steps that it was minded to take to resolve those problems. But unfortunately, those negotiations did not take place. And I held on for months, hoping there would be progress, and there wasn't. And in February 2022, I took the decision to withdraw the First Minister, the then First Minister, from the executive. Northern Ireland only works when we have a basis for moving forward that both Unionists and Nationalists can support. Cross-community consensus is at the heart of the Belfast Agreement. It is at the heart of how our political institutions operate. Amanda, I make no apology for standing up for my people. I make no apology for ensuring that that principle is adhered to. I make no apology for working for 2 years to put Northern Ireland back on course again on the basis that Unionists and Nationalists can both support. And in relation to reform, I can tell you, Amanda, when the Assembly is back up and running, the people of Northern Ireland want to see our health service reformed. They want to see investment in our education system. They want to see all the things that you've been asking me about for months and months and months. They want to see a thriving economy. They want to see jobs for our young people. These are all matters that are a priority for the incoming executive. In time, we will sit down with the other parties. There is an Assembly and Executive Review Committee at Stormont which can continue the work of looking at how we can improve the way that we do government in Northern Ireland. We're up for that conversation. But what we are not up for is the politics of exclusion, excluding Unionists from government. What we are not up for is a return to majority rule, which some who used to advocate cross-community consensus are now advocating majority rule. It doesn't work for Northern Ireland. I want a Northern Ireland where Unionists and Nationalists, people from whatever background they come from, can be proud of this place. That our young people see this place as their future. That we can build a Northern Ireland that works for everyone. The union will be secured in a Northern Ireland that works.
Olivia, from Bloomberg.
I wondered if you could give me just a little bit more clarity on the timeline. Is it reasonable for us to expect that you'll be elected as Speaker and Ministers by this weekend? Secondly, Sir Jeffrey, thinking bigger, is this essentially because you want to go back into power sharing because you believe that is better for the union than direct rule? And was the boycott basically just the end of the road, and so you feel like you just have to go back into the union? And lastly, I don't know who wants to take this, but you've said no checks, but what if, for example, a lorry
comes into a port in Larne or Belfast that has goods for Northern Ireland, but also has goods on the same lorry to then go down south, currently all the goods on that lorry is being checked. Is that going to change?
I'll take the last question first, and it's actually contained within the paper, so I'll point you to that, if I may, after this. On the timeline, I really don't have anything more to say, because the next step in my timeline is tomorrow, and it's a very important step. I need to ensure that the two SIs pass through the Commons stage tomorrow, and that is what, in my yo-yoing across the Irish Sea, that is my next journey to go and make sure that is done.
Again, on the timing, we've outlined our position, and when we believe the government have delivered what we required in the timeline, including the legislation that is to be considered in Parliament tomorrow, then we will take the next steps. Yes, as I outlined in my speech at our party conference last October, I believe in devolution. I believe in having a government in Northern Ireland that works for all our people, and that remains my position. I've been a Member of Parliament now for almost 27 years. I've also been a member of the Assembly. I count it an honour to represent this beautiful constituency in our national Parliament. But I have found throughout my career that the closer government is to the people, the better it can deliver. And for a divided society like Northern Ireland, power sharing, based on cross-community consensus, I believe, is the way forward for Northern Ireland, and we will continue to work to deliver that effective government here. On the question of mixed loads, as you have described, our objective is to ensure that as many goods that should be in the UK internal market system are moved out of the red lane. Less than 20% of all goods crossing the Irish Sea go into the red lane. Over 80% of goods crossing the Irish Sea will now travel through the UK internal market system with no checks, no customs declarations, free-flowing, with the Irish Sea border within the internal market of the United Kingdom gone. That represents progress. Is there more to do? Yes, there is more to do. I want to work with the government to ensure, and we will have a new independent monitoring panel set up for that very purpose, along with a new body called Intertrade UK, and they will monitor the movement of goods solely for the purpose of ensuring that those goods that should be flowing through the internal market of the UK do so, and where there are goods going into the red lane that don't need to be there, they will be moved out of the red lane into the UK internal market. I want to shrink that red lane as much as we can, which is primarily, of course, for goods moving into the EU, and that's what it should be for. It shouldn't be for goods that are staying within the United Kingdom.
Peter from AFP is not here.
Question for Sir Jeffrey. I have any message for the naysayers who, according to police reports in this afternoon's media, may be mobilising to block roads towards the weekend to coincide with the Assembly recall that happens?
Well, I simply ask the question, how will blocking roads in Northern Ireland deliver change? How will that restore Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom? How will that make Northern Ireland work? Earlier today, and I repeat it now, I challenged my critics in unionism. And I repeat the challenge. I can demonstrate very clearly what we have delivered, and it's there for everyone to read, for every unionist in Northern Ireland to see the progress we have made with our campaign, with our efforts. Real change, strengthening and safeguarding Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. Now, my question to my critics is, what have you delivered? What change have you secured? What change have you secured to the protocol, to the Windsor framework? What have you achieved that strengthens Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom? Well, I have to say that I think if they were to set out in a paper the changes that they have secured, that's what it would look like. That's what it would look like. A big blank sheet of nothing. So I simply ask my fellow unionists, read these proposals, read this agreement, see the change that is being delivered, bank the progress we have made, and let's continue to fight for more change going forward. Unionism is at its best when it's on the front foot. Unionism is at its best when it works together. Is this really the time for unionism to turn in on itself? Is this really the time for unionism to bring Northern Ireland to a halt? And I also think people should be honest. Some of those who are our critics really don't want Stormont back. That's the reality. They don't want an assembly. They don't believe in power sharing. Some of them, unfortunately, live in a bygone era. Actually, and ironically, and I hope the Secretary of State won't take this personally, but they're the people who cry the loudest against the government of the United Kingdom, who constantly accuse the government of the United Kingdom of betraying them, of letting them down, of selling them short, and yet their solution is to give all of the power to the government that they claim has let them down. Well, I'm a confident unionist. I'm a unionist that wants to make Northern Ireland work. I believe in this place. But I also recognise that as a society, we've got to work together. And that's what I'm aiming to achieve.
Thank you. And I think I saw Suzanne come in at the back. Suzanne.
Just two questions for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you threw down a challenge there to your unionist to read the document and they need to achieve. They've also thrown down a challenge to you. These are people that you have marched with at demonstrations, stood with side by side on rally platforms, and they're saying to you now, Jeffrey Donaldson, leader of the DUP, let's have a public debate on the deal to secure. And we're talking here about Jim Alistair and Jamie Bryson, be it a public debate on TV or a public debate in an Orange Hall, or places that you have been to with them. So one, are you up for that public debate with your critics? And number two, would you be concerned about potential protests outside DUP offices?
I will not be intimidated by anyone, and nor will my colleagues be intimidated by anyone. In recent days and weeks, I've been threatened. We've had people putting pressure on my party members. But we have made our decisions. That debate is over. We are moving on. Yes, I did share platforms with people, and all of us declared what our objectives were. All of us. The difference between me and those who are my critics tonight is very clear and very simple. I got off the platform and went and did something to secure my objectives. I worked hard to deliver change. My critics got off the platform and did nothing. Nothing to deliver change. And have achieved nothing. Now, people have a choice. They have a choice. They can either work with us to deliver change and deliver more change going forward, or they can stand on the sidelines and shout about what they think is wrong and criticise the man in the arena who's fighting for Northern Ireland. But what have they delivered? Therefore, I will wait on their response, Suzanne, to my challenge. I want to see them now publish for the public to see. I want the public to be able to judge. So I say to Jim Alistair, Jim, you publish a document setting out the changes you have secured to the Windsor Framework, the changes you have secured to the Northern Ireland Protocol, the changes you have secured to safeguard Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom. You set out what you have actually delivered. I have set out what I've delivered. It's clear. Everybody can read it. And when Jim has done that, when he's given us a credible, and I mean credible, response that demonstrates the change he has delivered on all of these things, then I'll consider a discussion. Then I'll consider a discussion. But what I'm not prepared to do is to be poked and prodded at by people who've delivered nothing, who just want to goad, who are only interested in dividing unionism. That's not for me. So, Suzanne, my challenge back to Jim Allister and others is very clear. You publish what you've achieved in changing the protocol, the Windsor framework, and safeguarding the union. What have you achieved in the last 2 years? Specific detail. What legislation have you secured? What change have you secured to the protocol arrangements? And when you can publish that document and set out very clearly what you've done, then we'll have a look at it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. So, Jeffrey, do a quick handshake.
So there we are. Hillsborough Castle was the scene for that news conference. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris, saying the legislation strengthens Northern Ireland's position in the Union. It strengthens the UK's internal market. And he said it's the right deal for Northern Ireland, the right deal for the Union. And in a fairly impassioned performance from Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, the DUP leader, he said, it's something we have worked hard to deliver. This is the product of a long negotiation, and this is our achievement. He paid tribute to all his party colleagues, though, of course, some remain unconvinced by all this. But he says it represents a forward-looking unionism. And then at the end there, he was speaking about his critics, and he said some of them don't want power sharing at all. They live in a bygone era. That's from Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, the DUP leader, as he poses for photographs there in Hillsborough Castle, the residence of the Northern Ireland Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris, in Northern Ireland.